All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. All right. Let's start with the opening song. We welcome you, wherever you come from. We welcome you, whomever you love. We welcome you, whoever you are. We welcome you, wherever you come from. We welcome you, whomever you love. We welcome you. So good morning, everyone. I am Susan Rogers, and I'm here presenting today's service along with my husband, Rick Rogers. Thank you to Tina Jones and Lisa Merrill Price and Steve Israel for providing assistance, and also to our music coordinator, Sophia Singleton. Please be aware that we record this service and we do post it on Facebook, except for the time that we do for privacy and concerns. We welcome you. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of life's biggest questions. We welcome you. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope you will find ways to provide outreach to others in our congregation, in our local community, and in the world community. So here at MBUUC, our goal is to provide a welcoming space for people to come together to experience religious freedom, find a community, grow spiritually, and explore ways to make a difference in the lives of others. We draw on a wide variety of resources to provide stimulating and meaningful Sunday services. We encourage you to attend several services to gain a good understanding of who this congregation is. If you want further news, please remember to read our weekly email newsletter, which provides comprehensive information about everything that's going on at MBUUC. And so if you're a visitor and you'd like to start receiving that weekly email, make sure you fill out one of these blue cards found in the seat pockets on the back of the chairs, and then put that card in the box on the greeters table outside the door here. So please take a moment to greet your neighbors. The chalice will be lit today by Buffy L. Wazani. Please join me in reading the words provided for you as we light the chalice. We light this chalice to affirm that the new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to illuminate our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this. So we're going to start today's service with joys and concerns. Tina, if you would stop recording at this time, you can record again. We're going to sing hymn number 348, guide my feet, and please stand if you are willing and able.
Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. To guide my feet while I run this race. Now guide my feet while I run this race. Now guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Now hold my hand while I run this race. Now hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Now stand by me while I run this race. Now stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. Yeah. Search my heart while I run this race. Now search my heart while I run this race. Now search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
Something to get the blood flowing this morning. So I met my husband, Rick Rogers, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he was pursuing his PhD in Near Eastern Studies, which is the study of the Middle East, as opposed to Far Eastern Studies, which is like China and Asia. On our dates, he would impress me with his knowledge of language, including Aramaic, Coptic, Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, which were languages that he needed to know in order to pursue his PhD and read the ancient texts that he had to read for his degree. And I found this very sexy. You can't give up on a guy who knows Coptic. So over the years, Rick has helped me to understand that most situations are a little more complex than what we see on the news. We have these discussions. We see something on the news, and then we discuss it. And he helps me to understand that, there's so many layers to every situation. And that both sides of an issue can be right and wrong at the same time. So there's this view and there's this view, and then there's probably the truth somewhere out there. So as you will see, my husband Rick has a very unusual approach to teaching, which he'll talk about. Please welcome him to the podium.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? I have no idea how loud I'm good. You may be puzzled a little bit by the title of my talk on your road sign outside and here, the Nutty Professor. And you might be a little confused by my secondary title in your service bulletin, also up here on the screen, The Power of Critical Thinking. I'm guessing most of you have heard of the power of positive thinking. This is the title of a famous book by Norman Vincent Peale and was published in 1952. Back then, I guess, positive thinking was a concern that a lot of people had. too much negative thinking going on, maybe after World War II. But today, I think what we need a heavy dose of is something that I'm calling here and that many of you have heard of before, the power of critical thinking. Well, my nearly 40 years of instructing university students in critical thinking led to my being dubbed by some of them as a nutty professor. And you'll know why in a few minutes. More importantly, I hope to make the phrase, the power of critical thinking, clear to you. I have several slides to show you here. Have any of you seen the movie by Jerry Lewis, The Nutty Professor? Came out in 1963. Yeah, a few of you? Okay, that's good. A couple of years earlier, a second movie came out called by Disney called The Absent-Minded Professor, 1961. As a teenager, these were two of my favorite movies. Never dreaming someday I would become a professor myself. The Nutty Professor movie is a comic twist on the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde story, with Jerry Lewis's character, a bachelor and chemist, inventing a potion to help him get over his inferiority complex and also to get dates with women, which I think was his primary motivation. However, when he consumed his concoction, he turned into this weird guy by the name of Buddy Love, who was a much too suave alter ego. And of course, that's when the fun begins in the movie. As for me, later in life, I much preferred movies about inspirational professors and teachers, like this guy, Sidney Poitier. Some of you may remember his movie. And then there's Robin Williams' movie, came along a little bit later. And eventually, even the teacher, Maggie Smith, in the series, the Harry Potter series. However, there was one much older movie that I saw as a kid, which inspired me more than any other movie I saw that probably led to my becoming a teacher. And that was this one, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Yeah, with Robert Donat. I still watch this movie every time it plays on Turner Classic Movies. On my first date with the woman who would become my wife, who's sitting behind me right now, I asked her what her favorite movie was, and guess what she said? This movie right here. I really think that was the moment that I fell in love with her. Mr. Chips, if you've not seen the movie, was teaching his students to read Latin. But the point of the movie had nothing to do with learning the language of Latin. It was actually, and what he was actually doing is teaching his students to become critical thinkers. Throughout my own career as a professor, students often asked me why I stress the importance of critical thinking. That seemed utterly nutty to them. Many of them would respond by saying something that I found kind of stupid, even though they didn't realize it. They would say, "I didn't take your course, Dr. Rogers, to learn how to think." They thought they were taking my course to learn about the subjects I was an expert in and how to learn how to do something they thought they already knew how to do really well, which was think. After all, they're very smart college students. Well, if you will indulge me more than my students did, today I'm going to make 3 observations about critical thinking. I'm going to answer 2 questions and then offer a brief example. First, what is critical thinking? Second, why did I stress it as a teacher? And third, I'm going to tell you a very sad story about a fellow academic in my field of studies who lost his power of critical thinking. So I have only 3 points, which makes for a good brief sermon, I hope. First, what is critical thinking? I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit here, so hang in there. Professor Linda Elder an educational psychologist at the Center for Critical Thinking, and I bet you didn't know there was a Center for Critical Thinking, but there is, has provided me with some help in understanding what it is and why it is an essential academic tool. If I can get the next slide to show up, Tina. There we go. Professor Elder gave me a somewhat complex definition, which you see in the slide here, for critical thinking. So I put the definition into this slide. You don't have to memorize it. I promise there's not going to be any exam today. She said, critical thinking is self-guided and disciplined thought that attempts to reason at the highest level of quality in a fair-minded way. While going on to explain this definition in more detail, she gets a little more personal by saying, whatever one's confessional commitment or whatever you deeply believe in, a critical thinker is required to be as objective as possible. And I stress those last two words, as possible. None of us can be completely, absolutely objective, but we can do the best we can. This is especially important for an academic who writes articles and books, who wants to promote confidence in their observations as unbiased and accurate. Elder claims that critical thinkers, and let me read her exact words, critical thinkers will try to live rational and empathetic lives, aware that all of us are flawed thinkers. In other words, we need to demonstrate some humility, since none of us are perfect thinkers. And furthermore, Elder goes on to point out that all of us are subject to unwarranted personal preferences and occasionally even dangerous prejudices. Elder concludes that critical thinkers should practice the Socratic principle, which I'm sure all of you have heard before. The unexamined life is not worth living. Okay, that's my first point. Second, why did I stress critical thinking as a teacher? I like movies. Another one of my favorite movies is The Paper Chase. The movie is about James Hart, who was a young man from a farming community in rural Minnesota and became a first-year student at Harvard Law School. The movie highlights his experience with Professor Kingsfield, played by John Houseman. How many of you seen the movie, by the way? Many of you. Good. Kingsfield stressed critical thinking so as his students would learn, as he put it, to think like a lawyer. As an historian, I always wanted to help my students think like a historian. Critical thinking, however, is an academic discipline that has unique methods and goals in every field of study. In other words, biology professors try to teach their students to think like biologists. Math professors try to teach their students to think like mathematicians, and so forth. For me, to think like a historian requires an ability to imagine and to appreciate different worlds than one's own, and to develop a perspective on another's time, place, culture, tradition, by asking, and this again is true in all academic disciplines, by asking dispassionate questions designed only to understand. All good professors, I believe, no matter what their discipline, should teach their students to be careful in how they think, and especially to avoid sharing bad information. There's a lot of bad information being shared today, especially in social media. But the key point I want to make here is that all professors, particularly undergraduate professors, don't just teach a subject like history, but more importantly, they try to be good classroom examples of critical thinking. For instance, we professors are trying to teach our students to be cautious with and even suspicious of absolute claims. So we try to avoid them in our lectures. Absolute claims are often false claims. Nevertheless, occasionally, and only occasionally, a small exaggeration in the classroom seems appropriate, as I'll try to explain. In graduate school at the University of Michigan, I worked for Dr. Peter Machinist as an assistant grading undergrad papers. He was my mentor and a phenomenal lecturer, particularly in his massive undergraduate history courses. But as I listened to him in those courses, I noticed that his content and tone in the undergraduate lectures was very different from his content and tone in my graduate seminars. And so I asked him why this was the case. Peter jokingly said that in his undergraduate courses, he tried very hard not to lie too much. I don't know if the point would be clear to everyone, but it was clear to me. He taught me that undergraduates need to be entertained, and they need to feel confident that we as scholars really do know some things about history, especially if any of those young people were to develop an abiding interest in our subject. So occasionally we appeared to be more confident about the facts of history than perhaps we really were. Graduate students, Peter went on to say, need to understand that there are no easy answers in scholarship and that our work would someday be peer-reviewed by senior scholars whose opinions about us may determine the success of our careers and even our promotions. If we young professors claim too much in our research, our peers will simply lose confidence in our work. To put it bluntly, there is no room for pretending or even a little exaggeration in good professional scholarship. Well, all that is what is meant by critical thinking for academics, and it's difficult to learn. In fact, it is a practiced skill that must be engaged in daily if we're to ever get good at it. Critical thinking, however, is also vitally important for everybody in everyday life. As I said earlier, my undergraduate students, most of whom would never choose to become scholars, always thought that I was a little nutty, given my obsession with and obnoxious devotion to teaching them about critical thinking. But I always hoped that they would come to realize that critical thinking, more importantly, would lead to good citizenship and a happier personal and public life. Some of you may have heard of the online program called Masterclass. One of the instructors is the famous astrophysicist named Neil deGrasse Tyson. His masterclass course considers critical and scientific thinking for the general public. I'm going to quickly paraphrase 3 of his important suggestions for how all of us can practice critical thinking. Number 1, question your assumptions and do it regularly. Number 2, probe all the evidence you can. All the evidence you can gather before forming a personal belief or deep convictions. There's a lot of evidence out there for things, and we can't gather it all, but do the best you can. Acknowledge your possible biases. This is number 3. Acknowledge your possible biases as best you can, realizing no one is a perfect thinker. I believe those are pretty good suggestions for all of us. Okay, third, and with all that I've said so far, let me take a moment to give you a current example of how a lack of critical thinking can lead not only to poor scholarship, but can also lead to very bad citizenship and ultimately to disappointment with our personal and public lives. For over a decade, and before completely retiring, I've been teaching a course that I call The History of the Holocaust. In fact, a couple members of your church here, Steve Israel and Bob Rex, both of these guys have been my guest participants in the course. And because I see you both here, I have to say, very good participants. To highlight the value of critical thinking, I'm going to ask you to briefly consider my focus in this course on something called Holocaust denial. One of my colleagues, Deborah Lipstadt, is a professor at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. In her books, she often mentioned and accused a British provocateur, David Irving, of being a Holocaust denier. Well, Irving got angry at her and brought a libel suit against Deborah in an English court for referring to him as a Holocaust denier. Soon after, Professor Lipstadt was invited by that British court to defend herself and to do so personally, which she did. In her book, Denial, and I think I have I forgot John Houseman here. There he is. And there they are, David Irving and Deborah Lipstadt. There's the book, Denial. In her book, Denial, and in the movie of the trial starring Rachel Weisz, who you see in the middle up there, we see how Dr. Lipstadt proved that she was falsely accused of libel and that Irving was indeed guilty of being a Holocaust denier. Actually, this wasn't easy for Lipstadt because contrary to our American sense of justice, in England, when you're accused of libel, you're guilty until proven innocent. She had to publicly prove herself innocent of his claim before proving that Irving was guilty of her claims. And she did. In a past life, David Irving had been a productive World War II researcher, but he lost his critical thinking skills on this related issue of the Holocaust. Without questioning his own assumptions, without gathering much evidence to support his views, and without acknowledging his possible biases and convictions, Irving made the absolute claims that no Jews died in Nazi gas chambers, and that the Führer, Adolf Hitler, had no culpability in the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were murdered. While Irving, primarily due to this trial, is now roundly ridiculed for his heretical views by professional historians and Holocaust scholars, his claims have had enormous impact on many people in public life. In fact, many young and attractive American podcasters will give a platform on their social media shows to those promoting Irving's pseudo-historical views, unwittingly encouraging the violent anti-Semitism that often follows. To soften their views, many of these Holocaust deniers prefer to call themselves Holocaust revisionist. And the misfortune they generate is so pervasive that without extensive education of the public, it is nearly impossible to rectify. I believe it was Helen Keller who said, in another context, that the heresy of one age becomes the orthodoxy of the next. The most important goal of my course was to expose this heresy of Holocaust denial with critical thinking. If you want to see Professor Lipstadt's extraordinary 15-minute TED Talk as she tries to rectify this massive amount of misinformation and to ensure that this awful heresy does not become orthodoxy, go to YouTube. Just Google it and go to YouTube and type in "Behind the Lies of Holocaust Denial." Or if you want, you can stay after the service today and watch her talk here in the sanctuary. Go get your coffee, come back in, I'll cue up the video and answer any questions you may have. I know you will enjoy this video. Professor Lipstadt is quite engaging and has a great sense of humor. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for letting me chat with you today.
Okay. Now let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this church, which is so important to many of us. We gratefully dedicate this offering to the good of the church, the wider community, and the world. If you make automatic pledge payments, please place one of these yellow cards indicating your support in the basket. And if you want today's contribution to count towards your annual pledge, please put it in an envelope, which is also in the back of the chair, with your name on the front, and that way we'll know who to credit it to. So enjoy Sophia playing for us on the piano during the offertory. Our closing words today are from Martin Luther King. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Join me in reading the words provided to extinguish the chalice. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. Before our closing song, we will take time for a few brief announcements. Come to the podium if you have an announcement.
Angelus's dance freeform event has been canceled for today. There was low enrollment. A couple people had to back out last minute, so she's looking forward to hopefully meeting with everybody next month.
Hello. Wanted to very quickly announce that the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Fest will be happening the 14th and the 15th, so it's not this weekend, but the weekend after, but, well, it's coming up soon. But it's going to be at the Ann Arbor Public Library. There's going to be a ton of comic artists there, myself included. There will also be special guests Scott McLeod and Raina Telgemeier, and a whole bunch of other people. So again, that's June 14th and 15th, the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Fest. If you have any questions, feel free to just approach me and ask. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I have a couple of announcements. The first announcement is blood drive. Don't forget, June 21st, 9 to 2. I need volunteers for food, for working, and for donations. If you have volunteered previously and would like to volunteer again, please let me know. Because nobody's let me know yet, and I don't want you to think I automatically think you're going to help because I don't like to assume. So if you do want to help again, please let me know. The next announcement is about Mackenzie's. Just a reminder, Mackenzie's graduation party is today at 3:30. This will be in the social hall. It has her address and stuff. She's invited everyone. It's also their family's giant pig roast. The pig got started this morning about 4:30 a.m. And they would love to have you all come. In addition to that, we are going to be passing around a card for you to sign, and also this basket. If you would like to give money for her graduation card, please put it in the basket. We'll make sure it all gets put together and given to her today. The last announcement, this is from Noelle, and it is about Hogwarts, which is coming up in August. August 9th and 10th. She asked me to let you know that on July 20th and July 27th, she's going to start taking things down from the attic, and she can always use help with that if you'd like to help with that. But more importantly, on August 3rd, after potluck, she's going to be hanging the walls and the pictures and all the things that makes it so magical here. She really needs volunteers for that. Again, it's after potluck, so you'll be fed, and then if you could help her, she would appreciate it. So if you could stay, that would be great. If you do want to stay and help, if you let her know, that would probably be helpful, just because then she's not going to freak out if not knowing if people are going to help. And then Hogwarts is the 9th and 10th. And she said, if you would like to volunteer at Hogwarts, that you can, these are out in the, on the greeting table, and it has a QR code to sign up if you want to volunteer. And volunteering can mean like a half an hour of your time, making sure that nobody throws themselves off of the slide. It doesn't have to be an all-day thing. So if you could volunteer a little bit of your time, she would appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can see Noelle or probably Kevin, who could pass along the question. And thank you, everyone, for your help.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I wanted to let you know about a concert coming up on this Friday at 7:30 p.m. at the Zoar Lutheran Church in Perrysburg. This is for a national association called Music for Food. So it's a concert of chamber music where donations will go to assist people in need. Funds raised will go to Perrysburg Christian United Food Pantry. And this includes, myself playing the cello, BGSU faculty members, Toledo Symphony members, former BGSU students. There'll be works by Friedrich Hermann, Beethoven, Philip Glass, and Robert Schumann. And again, 7:30 p.m. at the Zoar Lutheran Church. Admission is free, but there's a $15 suggested donation, which again will go to this charity. Thank you.
I do have an announcement. Before I make my announcement, though, I would just like to say, Rick, what a great talk today. And I know when Steve and I took the course on separate occasions, you think you know something about the Holocaust, but Rick is what a source of information. And we really enjoyed that, taking the course. But one thing Rick would make one announcement. It was on Zoom, about 20 students. And I think Steve and I we were the oldest students in the class probably. But anyway, I remember Rick would take a break, and I don't know if he just said it was Steve, but he always said, I think the dogs are barking now. We're going to take a little break here. So I don't know if he had dogs or not, but I always liked that. But that was a good thing. And I think the favorite thing in the class was, for Rick, when we took the course, there were no papers, and I did not have to take a final. So that was good. So that worked out good. But two, I have one announcement. I think Lynn made the announcement last week about our tables here. We've got a lot of older, heavy tables back here. And if someone would want one of those tables, they're free to take. And I did check with the Restore yesterday for Habitat for Humanity. They will take these. We will donate the chairs to Habitat for Humanity. So later on, sometime down the road, we'll take them out, set them on the yard out front, and they will come and pick them up. So, but if anybody wants a table to put in their basement or have for garage sale, display stuff, those are available for you to take home. There's I think we have 9 of them back here in the closet. So we're going to get some lighter weight tables, and we have plenty of tables now. So if anybody wants a table, they are yours to take. If not, we will donate them to the Restore for Habitat for Humanity.
This was something I remember having on the table. It's the money jar, and I don't know if it was put away for a reason, but I believe in the newsletter it says that if you want to have, or if you have extra change, or you want to donate to buy food and goods for our brown bag, mission, then you can put your extra change or some dollars in here, and one of the church folks will take it and buy stuff and give it to the brown bag. So, after the closing song, we invite everybody in person to stay to network over coffee and grab your donut and your coffee and whatever else. Come back in here and we'll show the video. It's only 15 minutes, but it's a really good video of Deborah Lipstadt. And thank you for joining us. Please stand if you're willing and able, and we'll sing our final song, Think, by Aretha Franklin. Think. And I want to see some movement.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Think anointing. I ain't no psychiatrist, I ain't no doctor with degrees, but it don't take too much time to see what you're doing to me. You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Yeah, think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Oh, freedom, 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 oh, freedom, yeah, freedom, now freedom, 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 oh, freedom. Hey, think about it. Think about it. Ain't nothing you could ask, I could answer you what I want. But I was gonna change, but I'm not if you keep doing things I don't. You gotta think about what you're trying to do to me. Oh, think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. People walking around every day playing games, taking scores, trying to make other people lose their minds. Oh, be careful you don't lose yours. Oh, think about what you're trying to do to me. Woo, think, let your mind go, let yourself be free. You need me, and I need you. Without each other, ain't nothing even to do. Oh, think about it, baby. Be careful, baby. Think about it right now. Yeah, right now. Oh, right now. Right now. Please don't think yourself. Think about it, baby. Oh, goodbye, baby.
I come to you today to speak of liars, lawsuits, and laughter. The first time I heard about Holocaust denial, I laughed. Holocaust denial?
Okay. I feel bad because I don't have any money in here. Right. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. That sounds great. Right. 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 Sure.
for just the introduction, and it can all happen in the circle. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I sent you an email back yesterday about that August 17th. Yeah, it's the next week. In fact, maybe when they're resetting from the chairs. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking we'll just have one of those little tables and put the chalice on it, and that's it. I'm gonna use the lower table. Because it won't have to be. Yeah, because we don't have to worry about the photo. Right. Yeah. So that's where right, right. Yeah, that's the trick. Is when you're doing something to not overcomplicate. I tend to still do that. Okay, yeah, that'll be fine. Just let me know. Okay. All right, no problem. Thank you.
I come to you today to speak of liars, lawsuits, and laughter. The first time I heard about Holocaust denial, I laughed. Holocaust denial? The Holocaust, which has the dubious distinction of being the best documented genocide in the world. Who could believe it didn't happen? Think about it. For deniers to be right, who would have to be wrong? Well, first of all, the victims, the survivors, who have told us their harrowing stories.
Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Oh, I can still do it. I can still teach it. I give talks around senior centers from time to time. Just thinking about maybe organizing something there. I'd be happy to organize something here. Are you? Yeah. Yeah, really. Okay, well, this should be good. I guess you might get it going.
I come to you today to speak of liars, lawsuits, and laughter. The first time I heard about Holocaust denial, I laughed. Holocaust denial? The Holocaust, which has the dubious distinction of being the best documented genocide in the world. Who could believe it didn't happen? Think about it. For deniers to be right, who would have to be wrong? Well, first of all, the victims, the survivors, who have told us their harrowing stories. Who else would have to be wrong? The bystanders, the people who lived in the myriads of towns and villages and cities on the Eastern Front, who watched their neighbors be rounded up, men, women, children, young, old, and be marched to the outskirts of the town to be shot and left dead in ditches. Or the Poles, who lived in towns or villages around the death camps, who watched day after day as the trains went in, filled with people, and came out empty. But above all, who would have to be wrong? The perpetrators, the people who say, we did it, I did it. Now maybe they add a caveat. They say, I didn't have a choice, I was forced to do it. But nonetheless, they said, I did it. Think about it. In not one war crimes trial since the end of World War II has a perpetrator of any nationality ever said it didn't happen. Again, they may have said I was forced, but never that it didn't happen. Having thought that through, I decided denial was not going to be on my agenda. I had bigger things to worry about, to write about, to research, and I moved on. Fast forward a little over a decade, and two senior scholars of the Holocaust, two most prominent historians of the Holocaust, approached me and said, Deborah, let's have coffee. We have a research idea that we think is perfect for you. Intrigued and flattered that they came to me with an idea and thought me worthy of it, I asked, what is it? And they said, Holocaust denial. And for the second time, I laughed. Holocaust denial? The flat earth folks? The Elvis is alive people? I should study them? And these two guys said, yeah, we're intrigued. What are they about? What's their objective? How do they manage to get people to believe what they say? So thinking, if they thought it was worthwhile, I would take a momentary diversion. Maybe a year, maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4. In academic terms, that's momentary. We work very slowly. And I would look at them. So I did. I did my research, and I came up with a number of things, 2 of which I'd like to share with you today. 1, deniers are wolves in sheep's clothing. They are the same Nazis, neo-Nazis. You can decide whether you want to put a neo there or not. But when I looked at them, I didn't see any SS-like uniforms, swastika-like symbols on the wall, Sieg Heil salutes, none of that. What I found instead were people parading as respectable academics. What did they have? They had an institute for historical review. They had a journal, a slick journal, a journal of historical review. One filled with papers, footnote-laden papers. And they had a new name. Not neo-Nazis, not anti-Semites, revisionists. They said, we are revisionists. We are out to do one thing, to revise mistakes in history. But all you had to do was go 1 inch below the surface. And what did you find there? The same adulation of Hitler, praise of the Third Reich, anti-Semitism, racism, prejudice. This is what intrigued me. It was anti-Semitism, racism, prejudice parading as rational discourse. The other thing I found, many of us have been taught to think there are facts and there are opinions. After studying deniers, I think differently. There are facts, there are opinions, and there are lies. And what deniers want to do is take their lies, dress them up as opinions, maybe edgy opinions, maybe sort of out-of-the-box opinions, but then if they're opinions, they should be part of the conversation. And then they encroach on the facts. I published my work. The book was published, Denying the Holocaust, The Growing Assault on Truth and Memory. Came out in many different countries, including here in Penguin, UK. And I was done with those folks and ready to move on. Then came the letter from Penguin, UK. And for the third time, I laughed. Mistakenly. I opened the letter, and it informed me that David Irving was bringing a libel suit against me in the United Kingdom for calling him a Holocaust denier. David Irving suing me? Who was David Irving? David Irving was a writer of historical works, most of them about World War II, and virtually all of those works took the position that the Nazis were really not so bad, and the Allies were really not so good. And the Jews, whatever happened to them, they sort of deserved it. He knew the documents, he knew the facts, but he somehow twisted them to get this opinion. He hadn't always been a Holocaust denier, but in the late 80s, he embraced it with great vigor. The reason I laughed also was this was a man who not only was a Holocaust denier, but seemed quite proud of it. Here was a man, and I quote, who said, "I'm going to sink the battleship Auschwitz." Here was a man who pointed to the number tattooed on a survivor's arm and said, "How much money have you made from having that number tattooed on your arm?" Here was a man who said, "More people died in Senator Kennedy's car at Chappaquiddick than died in gas chambers at Auschwitz." That's an American reference, but you can look it up. This was not a man who seemed at all ashamed or reticent about being a Holocaust denier. Now, lots of my academic colleagues counseled me, Deborah, just ignore it. When I explained you can't just ignore a libel suit, they said, who's going to believe him anyway? But here was the problem. British law put the burden of proof on me to prove the truth of what I said, in contrast to, as it would have been in the United States and in many other countries, on him to prove the falsehood. What did that mean? That meant if I didn't fight, he would win by default. And if he won by default, he could then legitimately say, my David Irving version of the Holocaust is a legitimate version. Deborah Lipstadt was found to have libeled me when she called me a Holocaust denier. Ipso facto, I, David Irving, am not a Holocaust denier. And what is that version? There was no plan to murder the Jews. There were no gas chambers. There were no mass shootings. Hitler had nothing to do with any suffering that went on. And the Jews have made this all up to get money from Germany and to get a state. And they've done it with the aid and abetance of the Allies. They've planted the documents and planted the evidence. I couldn't let that stand and ever face a survivor or a child of survivors. I couldn't let that stand and consider myself a responsible historian. So we fought, and for those of you who haven't seen Denial, spoiler alert, we won. The judge found David Irving to be a liar, a racist, an anti-Semite. His view of history was tendacious. He lied, he distorted, and most importantly, he did it deliberately. We showed a pattern in over 25 different major instances, not small things. Many of us in this audience write books or writing books. We always make mistakes. That's why we're glad to have second editions, correct the mistakes. But these always moved in the same direction. Blame the Jews, exonerate the Nazis. But how did we win? What we did is follow his footnotes back to his sources. And what did we find? Not in most cases and not in the preponderance of cases, but in every single instance where he made some reference to the Holocaust, that his supposed evidence was distorted, half-truth, date changed, sequence changed, someone put at a meeting who wasn't there. In other words, he didn't have the evidence. His evidence didn't prove it. We didn't prove what happened. We proved that what he said happened, and by extension, all deniers, because he either quotes them or they get their arguments from him, is not true. What they claim, they don't have the evidence to prove it. So why is my story more than just the story of a quirky, long, 6-year, difficult lawsuit, an American professor being dragged into a courtroom by a man that the court declared in its judgment was a neo-Nazi polemicist? What message does it have? I think in the context of the question of truth, it has a very significant message. Because today, as we well know, truth and facts are under assault. Social media, for all the gifts it has given us, has also allowed the difference between facts, established facts, and lies to be flattened. Third of all, extremism. You may not see Ku Klux Klan robes, you may not see burning crosses, you may not even hear outright white supremacist language. It may go by names alt-right, National Front, pick your names. But underneath, it's that same extremism that I found in Holocaust denial parading as rational discourse. We live in an age where truth is on the defensive. I'm reminded of a New Yorker cartoon, a quiz show recently appeared in the New Yorker, where the host of the quiz show is saying to one of the contestants, "Yes, ma'am, you had the right answer, but your opponent yelled more loudly than you did," so he gets the point. What can we do? First of all, we cannot be beguiled by rational appearances. We've got to look underneath and we will find there the extremism. Second of all, we must understand that truth is not relative. Number 3, we must go on the offensive, not the defensive. When someone makes an outrageous claim, even though they may hold one of the highest offices in the land, if not the world, we must say to them, where's the proof? Where's the evidence? We must hold their feet to the fire. We must not treat it as if their lies are the same as the facts. And as I said earlier, truth is not relative. Many of us have grown up in the world of the academy and enlightened liberal thought where we're taught everything is open to debate. But that's not the case. There are certain things that are true. There are indisputable facts, objective truths. Galileo taught it to us centuries ago, even after being forced to recant by the Vatican that the earth moved around the sun. He came out, and what is he reported to have said? And yet it still moves. The earth is not flat. The climate is changing. Elvis is not alive. And most importantly, truth and fact are under assault. The job ahead of us, the task ahead of us, the challenge ahead of us is great. The time to fight is short. We must act now. Later will be too late. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she had been hired by the Biden administration for a brand new law